The Halifax Explosion 100 years on. G'day guys, how's it going? My name is AussieTash. I have received so many suggestions to watch documentaries on the Halifax Explosion. I've watched two, had a cry. It was just, oh my god. I've tried to get a few videos up, but due to the graphic imagery and the graphic content, they have been blocked. Emotionally, it just broke me. Seeing all the victims, hearing of that school being blown up in an instant, so many other things just emotionally broke me. Going to see what Halifax is like 100 years on after the explosion, so I'm looking forward to this video. Before we do, please make sure to jump on, hit that subscribe button. That would really help me out. Okay, the Halifax Explosion, 100 years later, let's go.
It brought a city to its knees in an instant. 2 square kilometers of Halifax simply obliterated by the largest human-made explosion prior to Hiroshima. 1,600 dead in the first few seconds. Another 400 would later die. A tragedy so horrific, it was once described as hell on earth.
The collision happened exactly at this spot.
Right over here.
Right opposite us is what used to be Pier 6.
Author Janet Mabey says the explosion brought the devastation of World War I home.
Some of the returning soldiers said they had not seen worse destruction on the fields in Flanders than what they came home to here. And you have to realize that some of them would be coming home to find their own homes completely destroyed and their family all killed. So it must have been a horrific occasion.
Yeah, how are you feeling that day?
She's 106 years old now, and so Maud Houghton must rely on her son for her most basic needs. Her hearing, her memories are fading.
Just wanted to get away.
But incredibly, the painfully vivid images of an ordinary walk to school that extraordinary day have never left her.
And boom! What an explosion. I'll never forget that day. Nobody forgets those days. You can't. People laying down, crying, and mothers grabbing kids. Mothers grabbing their kids and hugging them and stuff. Please, oh God, I never want to see that again.
No.
Nope.
I know the story about the school and how in the explosion the school was just gone. All those children. It was about 9:02 a.m. if that's correct. So all the kids will be in school. And yeah. That broke me. Learning about that in one of the other videos that I've done, that absolutely broke me. It's also my understanding that it was a warship, but there was no flags to identify that it was a warship, because if there was flags there, then German spies would be able to see that it was a warship and the ship was armed with all those explosives and they'd just shoot it down. So when the collision happened, they really had no idea what was on board that ship.
If the giant blast didn't instantly kill those in the immediate area, the ensuing tsunami, a 10-meter-high wall of water, did. And what wasn't smashed to bits, burned to the ground. Among the casualties, this fire crew responding to the initial fire aboard the ships. All were killed by the blast, but one. The driver was found a distance away, remarkably still clutching the broken steering wheel. The blast toppled wood and coal stoves around the city, setting homes and businesses ablaze all over Halifax.
So fire brigades immediately were launched from those outlying communities to come into Halifax and help.
And what happened when they arrived?
What happened when they arrived was that they discovered that their hoses did not fit with the water sources in Halifax. So I think they returned to just basically trying to pull people out from under the collapsed houses and to control the fires as best they could.
It was said you could hear the cries of those trapped in the burning ruins, and on the street, you had to step over the bodies.
my God.
Of the dead, 500 of them were children. Another 9,000 people were badly injured by flying glass and debris, charred, horribly disfigured, blinded. And to add to the misery of that day, a raging blizzard would cut the city off from outside help, burying the ruins of Halifax.
The blizzard was a huge complication because it meant that people that might have been rescued were now buried under snow as well as the rubble and the fires. So it did slow down the rescue operation terrifically that next day.
So there was the explosion, a blizzard, the fire hoses connections didn't work properly. I also recall from memory that there was a sugar mill or a sugar factory of some kind that also exploded in an instant when the explosion happened. Leave a comment, let me know. The children, 600 children died in that school on that day. That's horrible.
But help did arrive. And contrary to popular opinion, Boston was not the first to the rescue. Trains came from surrounding communities, but they couldn't get right into the city because of the twisted tracks. Medical staff had to carry supplies by hand to the injured.
There were many never even found because there was a tsunami, a wave of water that came up the shore on both sides and washed away numbers of people who were never seen again. So indeed, a lot of the records show from the Relief Commission that bodies simply were never found. There were also people here who weren't in any way listed on anyone's records. So we never really will know for sure the number of actual deaths from that explosion.
For those who survived, life would not be easy. 25,000 were left homeless or without adequate shelter. Food lines became a common scene.
We want to forget it. It hurts so much.
For the few survivors still alive, people like 106-year-old Maud Houghton, the ordeal has left enduring scars a century later. Tom Murphy, CBC News, Halifax.
We heard Tom mention Boston, that city playing a pivotal role in the relief effort. Within hours, it filled 2 trains with supplies and sent them north. And the help kept coming in the weeks that followed. As Paul Hunter tells us, to this day, the cities have a special connection.
Wow, I'm just thinking about this explosion happened in 1917. The doctors and the nurses that were looking after all the injured people, they were just GPs or just simple nurses. They would have had no idea and no knowledge of and no medical equipment to deal with the injuries that were coming in the door. It's just devastating to think about what happened back then. And then there was the storms that come in. And they said the train line was all messed up, so trains couldn't get through to Halifax either. So they were basically just stuck there. People were coming in to help, but how long did it take them to get there? Hours, days? I'm not quite too sure.
In downtown Boston, the final few touches on an annual thank you to Boston with love from an ever grateful city of Halifax. The backstory is familiar to many, that mega explosion flattening so much of Halifax. But less familiar, the urgent call for help that was answered by Boston's nurses and doctors who raced north to help as many Nova Scotians as possible. And they helped countless.
Yeah.
This month, 100 years later, Nova Scotia came to Boston. And at Massachusetts State House, it was a night to honor Boston's century-old goodwill.
You, as Bostonians, as Massachusetts, responded to our call and came to the aid of our city and to our province.
Premier Stephen McNeil, among the many Canadians here to celebrate and remember. With them, an American-born daughter of 2 Haligonians. As children, Beth Thompson's parents survived the Halifax blast. It changed their world. All those wounded led her mom into a life of medicine. And, like mother, like daughter.
You became a nurse because of your mom, and your mom became a nurse because of the Halifax explosion.
Yep. That's why I became a nurse. My mother would tell me all these things. and how important it is to take care of people. And in fact, just standing here talking to you, I'm doing homage to my parents and my people. I mean, I have lots and lots of relatives in Halifax, you know, and it's really very emotional for me. Hard to say that in words.
Wow. Okay, so Boston come to the aid of Halifax, and then 100 and something years later, Gander came to the need for New York. After 9/11, all those planes diverted from New York to Gander. So even though America and Canada go at it at the hockey, you guys have got a pretty good thing going on. If one of you needs help, the other one's going to come to your aid. Leave a comment if you agree. Let me know.
Meanwhile, over at the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary, we caught up with Joan Miller, a Canadian doctor practicing in Boston with a keen interest in that explosion. For all those doctors and nurses who went up from Boston, she tells us, the terrible circumstance in Halifax was an immeasurable learning experience. Lessons they brought home that improved the treatment of eye injuries and, to this day, the medical care of children.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't even calculate the number of people that were saved out of that, because it really created a whole new field and allowed us to care for children in different situations.
They mobilized extremely quickly.
Now, as Boston shows off its memories of that time, the care given, the lessons learned, it's to a still grateful province.
The people of Boston came to our rescue. It is an enduring relationship that has stayed through this entire time.
As for that tree, it even had its own Twitter page, chronicling the journey from Inverness County, Cape Breton Island, all the way to Boston, which, by the way, this year ended with an added permanent marker for it in Boston Common. And that night, this year's giant thank you. Exploding in light in Boston Common, Nova Scotia remembers, always. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Boston.
We also want to tell you about a new online feature that places you inside the events of December 6th, 100 years ago.
The First World War still rages, and Halifax is an important hub and far from danger. At least that's what everyone thought.
CBC News has launched a new, exclusive, interactive experience. Go back with Adrian Arsenault to the day of the Halifax explosion and experience the story for yourself in 360. From the sights to the sounds, be there to see what went wrong. Then learn more about the incredible stories in the aftermath, including the railway conductor who gave his life to save countless others. Check out the 360 experience on desktop, mobile, and headset. cbcnews.ca/Halifax Explosion.
Okay, I'm not quite too sure about that whole 3D learning experience. That might be a little bit too creepy for me. The Christmas tree, was that a gift from Nova Scotia to Boston? That's really, really cool. I know it didn't explain in detail a lot about what happened in the explosion. Like I said, I've seen a few documentaries already, so I am familiar with the devastation that happened from the explosion, that the ship was a warship and had all the TNT and other ammunition in it, and that's what caused the explosion after it set on fire. The death and destruction that come from the explosion, the sugar mill, the school, and just so many more countless people. I'm pretty sure there's some sort of a museum in Richmond, Nova Scotia, is it? Guys, please jump online, leave a comment. Have you been to this little museum? Tell me your stories that you've heard from your great-great-grandparents about that horrible, horrible day. It was a really, really emotional ride for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am sorry that it doesn't go into full detail, but like I said, it's just really, really hard to get it out there without it getting blocked because it's such a graphic story. I enjoyed it. It was an emotional ride. If you did, please jump online, smash the like button, leave a comment, and remember to subscribe. That would really help me out. Cheers from down under. Take care. Bye.